Hello, everyone. So, special treat today. I've been wanting to watch this video. Apparently Cenk from TYT, he went to Americafest, which is like MAGA Fest. I like to say MAWA Fest. I like to say MAWA instead of MAGA, because MAGA really is about Make America White Again. I really believe that. But they just say Make America Great, which for them means white. So I think the proper acronym is MAWA. But he went to MAWAfest, basically. And I have been wanting to see that, but I know Kyle reacted to it, and I want to see Kyle's reaction. So we're going to do 2-in-1. And I just want to share the cringe with everyone in case you want to see it and you haven't seen it. So maybe Kyle and I will cringe at the same time. I don't know. So let's get into it.
All right, guys. So Cenk Uygur, he's been doing the right-wing podcast circuit.
I feel Kyle's pain.
Since the election. And in his mind, he says, look, I'm trying to go out there and I'm trying to find areas of agreement between the populist right and the populist left to advance our agenda at a time when Trump won and the right won. And he says, hey, I'm finding a lot of agreement with these people. A lot of these people are agreeing on some, basic things that I'm laying out there. Now, I have a lot of problems with that.
Same.
For one thing,
Same.
I don't think the Tim Pools of the world and the Patrick Bet-Davids of the world, I don't think you could take them at their word. They aren't remotely populist. Are there Republican voters out there who maybe you're part of a union and voted for Obama but then voted for Trump? Are those people reachable, and should you actually put in the effort to try to swing those people back? Absolutely, you should do that. But this is not that, right? This is right-wing propagandists who are part of their media machine, who are elites. They are not outsiders. They are not populists. And so I have an issue with that strategy. I have no problem going on Tim Pool or going on PBD, or in fact, I did go on PBD. I have no problem doing this right-wing podcast circuit, but it's got to be more adversarial. It's got to be more, look, we're going to debate, and I'm going to lay out my worldview and say why I think Trump is bad and Trump is wrong and why the direction we're going to go is negative, etc. Right? But no, so this one actually shocked me, right? Cenk went to Americafest, which is a MAGA gathering of the TPUSA crowd. Now, this is an event that Donald Trump spoke at, I believe the day after Cenk spoke. Like, Donald Trump headlined the event, right? So this is like the heart of MAGA land. And again, I want to reiterate, this isn't some union worker who voted for Obama then flipped to Trump. This is like elite MAGA insiders. This is where he went. So let's take a look. We'll watch this whole thing.
Yeah, let's be friends.
And we'll see what we make of it. Here we go.
Give him all the grace in the world.
Cenk, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for that warm welcome. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
I mean, right off the bat, I think Cenk should question himself. Why did they give me a warm welcome?
Yeah.
I think Charlie Kirk said, hey, like, be nice or whatever, but why do you think they gave you a warm welcome? My guess is because a lot of what they've been saying lately on TYT is castigating what he calls an onus on their disagreement. It's probably why they're cheering you, Cenk, because it's like, hey, lately, these people have people to the left. So let's cheer to why reaction.
Spirit of inviting you is that there's some confusion of these divides of right versus left, populist versus corporatist. I guess a good opening would be, as a man in the progressive movement, as one of the leaders of the progressive movement, what do you make of this last year, the state of the Democrat Party, and kind of American politics from the more progressive left perspective?
Yeah. So first of all, I'm proud to represent the left flank of the populist movement, and I think we need both flanks. So
I'm more left than you.
To have this conversation. In terms of what has gone wrong in the Democratic Party, it's the same thing that went wrong in the Republican Party, but I do have to give you guys credit for a revolution well done. And what I mean by that is not a revolution against the Democratic Party or the left or the country, but a revolution against the establishment. So I knew you guys were for real in fighting against this establishment
They just
when I
love
started
Trump.
going on right-wing shows
That's not
and
right.
I would say
Whatever
something
Trump
negative
does,
about
that's
Mitch.
what they like.
And when I did that in the past, what I would get back is, oh, no, Mitch McConnell's great. Pelosi's terrible, but Mitch McConnell's great.
Let's do that here. What do you guys think of Mitch McConnell?
He literally has the richest man in the world.
All right.
Helping
Yes,
him.
I love
He was
that.
co-president.
So look, for my left-wing friends that are watching out there,
The establishment.
that's a great thing, okay? And let's do one more. What do you guys think about Dick Cheney?
They're booing him for different reasons.
My left-wing friends out there, we have been waiting for the right-wing
They're booing
populists to
both
boo
of
Mitch
them
McConnell and
because
Dick Cheney our
they went
whole
against
lives.
their
Take the
post-Trump
win.
somehow.
Take the
That's
win.
the only
Cenk, the
reason.
only reason they're booing Mitch McConnell and Dick Cheney is because they view Mitch McConnell and Dick Cheney as anti-Trump.
What did I say? What did I say?
They're not booing Mitch McConnell and Dick Cheney because Mitch McConnell and Dick Cheney are for wars and they're
See,
for...
Kyle and I, we're on the same page. That's why Kyle's awesome and much better. And yeah, because they've gone against Trump. Okay, that's why they're booing, not for the same reasons that you're against Mitch McConnell and Dick Cheney.
tax cuts for the
He's
rich
Cenk.
and they're for corruption and these people are against that. That's not the case. Because Trump is for
Yep.
wars and for tax cuts for the rich and does the corruption and they love Trump.
Yep.
So you're giving them too much credit,
Exactly.
assuming, hey, they're booing Mitch McConnell and they're booing Dick Cheney, and it comes from this sincere, principled opposition to corruption and war and tax cuts for the rich. It's not the case.
Yep.
And this is my issue with what he's doing here is,
I feel his pain.
Cenk, these people do love the establishment. Donald Trump
Yes.
is the establishment.
What did I say?
I understand the argument of like Trump has the optics of being an outsider, the optics of being unfiltered and being a populist and being anti-establishment. I understand he has the optics, but you cannot lend that argument credence by pretending it's real and it's true. It's not real and it's not true, and Trump is the establishment.
Yes.
He is the establishment.
Literally a
Now, what we need to do in the
rich
Democratic
celebrity.
Party
How much more
is we need to do likewise.
establishment?
We need to have a revolt
And you know,
against the
rich
Joe
men
Bidens,
will-
the Kamala Harrises, and the Nancy Pelosi's.
But this is why they bring you in. This is why they bring you in. They're bringing you in to shit on Democrats.
Yep.
That's the whole point. They want you to shit on Democrats. That's all they're taking away from this. The only vibe they're taking away from this and why they cheered you at the beginning is, oh, he's going to shit on Democrats. Hooray, keep shitting on Democrats.
It's not, oh, we're
That's
gonna
the
work
problem
together
with this, right?
Cenk or
Is that if you
whatever.
actually
That's
tell
like,
these
no,
people in
that's
the
not
audience
why.
the truth, that, hey, just so you know, Kamala Harris's policies were way more populist and way more pro-worker than Donald Trump's,
Yeah.
they wouldn't accept that.
And
They would boo in your
Cenk and
face.
Anna, did you give
They would tell you
credit
you're
to
wrong.
Kamala for
You'd be
that?
viewed as an
No.
enemy.
You think Kamala's just
Like, it's
horrible,
becoming the
she
oldest
don't
trick in the
do
book. The right is
anything.
great at dividing and conquering.
She actually had to see.
And they're bringing in Cenk Uygur to shit on other Democrats, and people don't care about the nuance in his argument. They will walk away with the vibe of Cenk is shitting on Democrats. It's good that when he's shitting on Democrats, reinforcing, helping them with their propaganda.
So thank you, Cenk.
When the fact is, for all the criticisms I have of even the establishment Democrats, the establishment
helping them,
Democrats
Cenk.
are way better than the MAGA Republicans. They just are.
And the Hillary Clintons, and now all of a sudden the Dick Cheneys. What are they doing on our side? Are you guys nuts? Right?
I have to interject. When all of a sudden Kamala Harris is doing the Liz Cheney thing, I said, does she want to lose? I mean,
What's amazing is I said the same thing. Look, Dick Cheney polls at 13%. What lunatic thought it was a good idea to wrap yourself around Dick Cheney?
Yeah, that's
But now,
a good
Cenk,
idea.
you're going to bring up, well, hold on. Lindsey Graham and Tom Cotton are some of the biggest neocon warmongers in the country. And they supported Trump vociferously. You're going to bring that up, right? You're going to say, yeah, we'll
No,
attack the
he's not gonna
neocons
bring
who
it up. No.
support Kamala Harris like Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney. But you guys will boo Tom Cotton and Lindsey Graham, and you'll criticize Trump for that. And you'll criticize for Trump. Remember when Don Jr. said to Cenk on Twitter, I'm going to keep neocons out of the administration. And then literally like the next day, Trump picked 7 different neocons to be in the administration. Remember that?
Yeah.
And what happened? Was there a MAGA revolt? Did the base say,
They're
we're not
not
accepting
principled.
Marco
They're
Rubio
only
as Secretary of State.
literally
We're not
just
accepting
do whatever Trump says.
Brian Hook
Trump
overseeing
is
the
a cult,
transition for
literally.
defense. These are all, that guy was like the mentor to
No
Mike
matter what
Pompeo,
Trump does,
right?
no
And they didn't
matter
like
how
Mike
he changes his
Pompeo, but again,
positions, they're just gonna follow
it's
along
all-
with whatever
it's selective.
he says.
The maddest MAGA got was when some guy who was a sheriff was picked for the administration, and they were mad at that guy for enforcing COVID rules during the peak of COVID. That was a no-go for them. Oh, you better axe that guy. But the 7 neocons Trump picked, not a fucking peep. Not a peep from MAGA land. So the idea that they're going to hold him accountable, they're not.
Yeah.
And when you get there, when you go there,
I can't believe
and you're
Cenk
shitting on, oh yeah, look at the neocons that endorse Kamala Harris, it's like, okay, but if the next sentence isn't, and by the way, Tom Cotton loves Donald Trump, and Lindsey Graham loves Donald Trump, and all these other neocons love Donald Trump and are now in the administration with Donald Trump, then you're giving them a misleading picture that, well, the Democrats have a neocon problem, but the Republicans don't. That's just misleading. It's just misleading.
22 years ago, longest running show in internet history, first ever YouTube partner with original YouTubers. One of the driving forces was get Dick Cheney out of office, right? And now for Kamala Harris to come full circle and say, oh, I've got 90 corporate CEOs backing me, and I've got all these executives on my side, and I've got Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney on my side. It was so counterproductive. It's not what the left wing stands for. It's not what the Democratic Party should be about. So the problem is the establishment. They are controlled by the donor class, and mainstream media is their marketing arm. They do not do news. They do propaganda.
Why are you guys cheering? You love
you
Fox
say the problem
News.
is the establishment. What they're hearing is that doesn't include Trump. Trump's part of the solution. That's what they're hearing. It's on you to explain to them. Trump is part of the establishment, and here's why he's part of the establishment. Here's how he's part of the establishment. Here's his pro-establishment policies, and here's what he's going to do in his second term, which is pro-establishment. And that part's not coming. Cenk, you have to know you're just effectively, what you're telling them, they are going to use it for their own ends.
Yes.
They're not hearing the nuance of it, and they're not hearing the, you hold your side accountable, and we'll hold the people on our side accountable. What they're going to do is give everybody on their side a pass when they're pro-establishment and pro-war and pro-establishment, and still go after the Democrats.
And one more thing. What I want you guys to recognize is that mainstream media, you think is against you. You think they're against the right wing. But they also hate Bernie Sanders. And they also hate me. And they also hate the populists on the left. What mainstream media really loves is the establishment and the elites. They're against all of us combined. And if we dare unite on issues we agree on, they will be livid, and it'll be a beautiful day in America.
If Bernie Sanders won the nomination in 2016 or won the nomination in 2020, every single person in this room would be comparing Bernie Sanders to Hitler, would be saying he's the worst president this country's ever had, would be screaming that he's a socialist and a communist and he wants to turn the United States into Cuba and Venezuela, and he's like Hugo Chavez and Che Guevara and all these horrible and Kim Jong-un. Joe Rogan compared Tim Walz to Kim Jong-un. That's what you need to understand. They're not coming from a sincere place.
Exactly.
These are right-wing propagandists for the Republican Party. That's who they are. So you're saying, oh, hey, okay, but Bernie's cool, right? Trump's cool and Bernie's cool, but the establishment is bad, right? If Bernie was the one, all of them, including Charlie Kirk, would be shitting on Bernie relentlessly.
They're outsiders, but
that's what you need to understand.
Well, not really.
And that is correct. I mean, you were kicked off of some of the cable news channels for having heterodox opinions on certain issues. So let's kind of look at the last couple of years. We can go back to the Bernie Sanders thing. Explain to us, why is it that right-wing revolution was successful, and the Bernie Sanders with 2 attempts actually won the primary in 2016, and he had it stolen. Again, stolen election talk can be a little controversial. They stole it from Bernie Sanders in 2016. Why was that revolution not successful?
Yeah, I think it was because Donald Trump was a celebrity and they didn't take him seriously. So they made the mistake of giving him mainstream media coverage. And so they thought, and if you remember, Bill Clinton had this brilliant idea, we'll encourage Donald Trump to run on the Republican side and it'll destroy the Republican Party. How'd that work out? And so I remember saying at the time, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Because what I sensed was you need a non-politician to lead the revolt. So, because all the politicians, and right now they're having a conversation on the Democratic side about 2028, and the only people they mention are politicians. And my answer to that is hell no, okay? Because the politicians are used to the corruption. They grew up in the corruption. They like the corruption. They got their power through the corruption. So I don't want that. I don't need that. And so when Trump came on, they gave him coverage. And here's when look, some people think that things changed after the election. No, I've been saying this from day one.
Certainly your tone and your emphasis and your focus has shifted since the election loss for Kamala. Because you voted for Kamala, you supported Kamala, you called Trump a fascist, and now you're meeting with people who support the fascist, and you're trying to say, hey, let's find areas where we can agree and stuff. right?
We need to resist more.
Your tone has definitely changed. Your focus has definitely changed. There's definitely more disagreeing with what he calls the max left now.
After I think it was the second debate, when Trump was on stage and he said, I gave all these guys money and they did exactly what I wanted. At that point, everyone on earth, certainly in establishment and mainstream media, says he has no chance of winning, none. I went on the Young Turks and I said, he's going to win the Republican primary, okay? Because people hate corruption and they know it in their bones, okay? We will disagree on, is Trump really not corrupt? Is Trump really going to do the things that he promised? Is he really a populist? I would love to prove me wrong. I would love that, okay? And, like, my God, if Trump got money out of politics, one thing we're known for is credit where credit is due, okay? I would give him all the credit in the world. We're not there yet. We're not close to there yet. So when we get into the issues, hey, how about, and remember, guys, you also have donors. Beware of the donors. Don't forget that, and don't let your guard down, okay? But so on the Democratic side, we have got to elect a populist. If we don't, we're going to make the same mistake we made when they anointed Hillary Clinton, when they anointed Joe Biden, and when they anointed Kamala Harris. So my Democratic friends, how many times are you going to lose before you realize that mainstream media and the establishment are lying to you?
Cenk, there has to be more of an acknowledgement of Trump's, like, even the idea that maybe he'll be populist. Maybe he'll get money out of politics. Maybe he'll change those things. Even that is giving them too much credit. If you're going to get in front of a MAGA audience, you need to explain to them how they were hoodwinked. You need to explain to them Trump took tens of millions, maybe even hundreds of millions. We don't know the exact number because it hasn't been disclosed yet, from Saudi Arabia for the live golf events at his courses. That is a direct conflict of interest with Saudi Arabia. He took 100 million from Sheldon Adelson. Well, actually, it was 200 million from Sheldon Adelson, 100 million recently from Miriam Adelson. And there's a quid pro quo to allow Israel to tank. Trump did not divest from his businesses his first time in office. He's not even pretending to do it this time. The first time he at least pretended to do it. When he was president last time, he took $160 million from foreign countries as president. He's out there hawking like NFTs and this crypto exchange and trading cards, and he's selling watches for $100K, which opens up the door for foreign influence peddling and billionaire influence peddling. Jared Kushner took $2 billion from Saudi Arabia and did their bidding and gave them classified information. And of course, Trump didn't even give Saudi Arabia a slap on the wrist for massacring Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Trump has a $500 million project in the works right now with Oman, the government of Oman. Trump's charity was a fraud. His university was a fraud. He stiffed his workers for his casinos and his hotels. He did tax fraud and insurance fraud and business fraud.
Thank you, Kyle,
if you're in front of a MAGA audience, you need to explain to them, okay, a lot of you might think Trump is pro-worker and anti-establishment and anti-corruption. Here's why that's actually not debatable, and he's deeply pro-corruption and anti-worker and pro-establishment. And
yeah, he doesn't explain this.
Much credit. It's assuming, like, hey, you guys won your revolution and we may have lost ours on the Democratic side. And it's like, that's not remotely true, because Trump is just a different iteration of the exact same establishment, and he's actually the most corrupt and the most pro-establishment, and he's going to be George W. Bush's fourth term on steroids. That's what you need to be explaining. You were just shitting on Dick Cheney. You should be explaining how Trump is just like Dick Cheney. That's what you should be doing, and he's not. And he's not doing that.
Is that energy forefront in the Democrat Party right now? And I'm not saying this facetiously. Read us into what the power brokers of the Democrat Party are saying. Are they saying we need to run more to the middle, that we need to embrace more populism? We're hearing some of the names, but what is the vibe of the people that do this for a living?
Okay, I will answer that question. What the power brokers in the Democratic Party are doing is they're semi-genuflecting at the altar of MAGA. They're dipping their toe in the water of MAGA. They're leaning into, maybe there's bipartisanship, maybe there's areas of agreement, maybe we just throw trans people under the bus more, immigrants under the bus more. That's what they're doing.
Cowards.
That's what they're doing.
Cowards.
So, in other words,
spineless cowards.
The Democrats are doing their own version of what Cenk is doing here. Right? Look at everything John Fetterman has said since the election. Like, this is the goal. This is the plan. You have Democrats joining the Doge caucus in Congress. You have Bernie Sanders or oh, maybe there will be some areas where we can agree. Where, oh, you're going to cut the Pentagon spending? Oh, no, you're not. Wow, what a shock. You didn't see that fucking coming. As I told you guys from day one, they're not going to cut the Pentagon. But this is what you're seeing. You're not seeing we are going to resist what you guys are going to do because it's going to be horrible. And here's what we propose to do instead. Here's our philosophy. Here's our ideology. Here's our narrative. You're fucking wrong, and this is how you fix the country. You're not seeing any of that. Any of that. So that's the problem, right? That's the problem, is there's this either full capitulation or semi-capitulation to Trump and Trumpism and MAGA. As if because he won the popular vote by 1.5 percentage points, they're acting like it was a fucking FDR-style landslide victory where he's got 80% of the House and 80% of the Senate, and he won by double digits.
Will never voluntarily. They will never.
And neither will the Republican. Like, Trump is not a new direction, Cenk. Trump is not a new direction. He's corrupt. He's pro-establishment. He's pro-war. He's not a new direction. Tell these people he's not a new direction. Stop making it seem like Trump is so different from Mitch McConnell or so different from Dick Cheney. They're the same guy.
They are built on donor money. They are of the donors, by the donors, for the donors. So.
And what about Trump? And what about the Republicans? He's gallivanting around the country with Elon Musk, the world's richest man. Imagine Joe Biden was running around the country with George Soros. Imagine that. What would the reaction be to that? And Elon Musk is running around with Donald Trump, and everybody's acting like it's normal, acting like that's not corruption, acting like that's not oligarchy.
Just because they're not politicians.
He's making it seem like, well, the problems in the Democratic Party are way worse than the problems in the Republican Party, because your guys' populist revolution may have worked. And it's like, Jesus Christ, even the worst establishment Democrat is better on worker issues, better on war issues, and better when it comes to taking on the establishment than any Republican or otherwise. And that is not what's coming out of this.
What I need left-wing voters to understand is that they're never going to give you what you want incrementally. Martin Luther King talked about the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Oh, if we just go a little further with Joe Biden, he'll give us another crumble and another tiny increment.
This ideology is going to make liberal voters less likely. What Cenk is doing here is going to make the people we need to vote for a real leftist, a real populist, it's going to make them less likely to do that. I hope he understands that. That doing this, going to these MAGA events and snuggling up to them and finding areas of agreement or whatever, that makes it so liberal voters will be less likely to pick a left-wing populist if in their mind they associate left-wing populism with this sort of capitulation to Trumpism. Because what liberal voters want and what a lot of leftist voters want is, no, we want you to fight. We want you to resist. We want you to not capitulate. We want you to not give an inch.
Fight.
And we want that mixed with good left-wing populist policies. And that's, okay, look, here's my biggest disagreement with Cenk is this. This election, Donald Trump was a bull in a china shop unlike we've ever seen before, more so than 2016, more so than 2020. It was Trump's worst campaign. It was his most unhinged campaign.
I think so too.
Talking about Arnold Palmer's cock, talking about immigrants eating cats and dogs, saying we're going to deploy the military against his opponents. Anytime anybody disagreed with him 1%, he beheaded them. As Cenk would say, this is something I've heard him say, he broke their back and drank their spinal fluid. That's what he did. And guess what, Cenk? He won. So in other words, you can be as arrogant as you want. You can be as unhinged as you want. You can be as aggressive as you want.
Suck up to him.
As long as you come back to your narrative and to your solutions, namely the billionaires are the problem, the corporations are the problem, we're going to defeat the corruption, we're going to defeat the donor class, and we're going to get you universal health care, we're going to get you higher wages, etc. As long as you come back to your narrative, you can say whatever the fuck you want to say. You don't have to bend the knee. You don't have to capitulate. You don't have to find fake areas of bipartisan agreement where there are no areas of bipartisan agreement. And instead of learning that lesson, that, oh shit,
whatever he wants,
we should be more balls to the wall, no pun intended. We should be more aggressive. We should be more unhinged. We should be more direct with what we want to do. Instead of taking that lesson away, he took the opposite lesson, which is like, let's find the areas of agreement and see if we can work together and take them at face value, even though they don't deserve to be taken at face value. And if anything, it's the exact opposite. They've proven you can't take them at face value because MAGA will go wherever Trump wants them to go.
Yes, exactly.
The second he proposes right-wing, non-populist, pro-establishment policy, they'll be right there saying, yes, sir.
Exactly.
So
what did I say? I said that.
He took away the opposite lesson. The lesson he took away was, I guess we do have to talk to them. I guess we do have to find areas of agreement where there are none. I guess we do have to take them at face value. I guess we do have to give them credit that their revolution in the party won. And then we'll find a way to get a populist left person elected. But no, if people associate populist left politics with capitulation and bending the knee and finding areas of agreement with MAGA where there actually are none, then that's a way to guarantee that populist leftists never win.
No, they're going to just pick a new and improved corporate robot like Pete Buttigieg or Gavin Newsom, and they're going to come out with a new script, and they're going to say, I am now a populist, and they
might be corrupt, but they're smart.
flannel shirts, and they'll go to barbecues, and they'll pretend to eat ribs, and then they'll sneak out and go to French Laundry, right?
So notice the double standard here. So for any Democrat who pretends to be a populist but isn't actually a populist, he's there to be like, that's bullshit. But when he's talking about Trump, it's from the perspective of, hey, maybe he will be a populist. Maybe he will be anti-establishment. We'll see. Maybe he'll do it. And that's the problem, Cenk. That's the problem. Is that there is no way Trump is actually going to be populist because we have his first 4 years in office. We have the evidence already in front of us. And you can compare how Trump governed to even how a standard establishment Democrat like Joe Biden, how Joe Biden governed. And Joe Biden, a standard establishment Democrat, was way more populist and pro-worker than Trump has ever been and any other Republican has ever been. And that's the problem.
Don't give him credit.
Pete Buttigieg, Gavin Newsom, bad, evil, wrong, not populist. Even if they pretend to be populist, they're just pretending, so don't believe them. But with Trump, when he pretends to be populist,
you think Gavin and
maybe there's a chance on some of these things. Maybe we could work with him. Maybe he means it. And it's like, I don't know how to get through to you other than to point out the record and scream about it 50,000 times over that there is a 0% chance of Trump being a populist. Zero. And look at his face. Look at Charlie Kirk's face. He knows what he's doing. Charlie knows what he's playing Cenk like a fiddle here. He knows what he's doing.
Don't believe the corporate robots.
Including Trump, right? Trump's a corporate robot, right?
Remember how many times they lied to you. We need to do a populist revolt and pick up. The establishment Democrats are never going to win. We need to go populist, and the way to do that is not by negotiating with them. It's by defeating them in a primary.
So why is it not by negotiating them, but by defeating them? That's what it is when you talk about Democrats. But when you talk about Trump, you don't say the same thing. You don't say it's not about negotiating with MAGA, it's about defeating them. You say, no, it's about negotiating with them. Look, I really do think in his heart of hearts, he thinks he's moving the agenda forward here. I really think that he thinks that. I really think he thinks doing this is more likely to get us a higher minimum wage or universal health care or whatever. I really think he believes that. But I could not disagree more with this approach.
Is the Democrat grassroots, are they invigorated towards that end? Because it seemed as if they weren't obviously thrilled about Biden or Kamala Harris, but you could say whatever you want about Bernie Sanders. I have massive worldview disagreements. He had a legitimate grassroots movement behind him of small dollar donors, of people that were working, of activists.
So playing up, oh yeah, Bernie, he had these good things about him, playing that up when sitting next to Cenk, knowing that that'll make Cenk more likely to say positive things about Trump and about MAGA. But again, in a different timeline where it's President Bernie Sanders or nominee Bernie Sanders for the Democratic Party, they wouldn't say a single fucking positive thing.
Exactly.
Because they are playing the game of politics. They are strategizing, and they're doing classic divide and conquer here, and using Cenk to go after Democrats. That's the whole point here. That's all that people are taking away from it.
But it seems like that has disappeared a little bit in recent years, or at least has gone to sleep. Am I correct in that? And what would it take to awaken that sleeping giant?
So there's a couple of different branches within the Democratic Party on the left, but the two most important ones are the populist progressive left, that's Bernie Sanders, and we can debate about progressive issues and policies on another day, right? But then there's the establishment wing. So the populist wing is already there. That base that was there in 2016 and 2020 still exists. And remember, guys, and I say this to you and I say it to the left wing. Bernie won the first 3 states in 2020. He was this close to winning until Obama and Clyburn called in all the candidates and said, you all have to bow to Joe Biden. And then mainstream media then said, Joe Biden is the greatest. And they started talking about how Bernie Sanders, the most successful Jewish candidate in American history, had followers who wore brown shirts and fascists and Nazis. Where have you heard that before? So whenever it's an outsider, all of a sudden mainstream media says fascist, even if it's a Jewish candidate, right? So they use the same tricks. And you guys have been canceled, I've been canceled. They do the same thing to both of us over and over again. So the left-wing populists are ready, but we do need some more votes from people who used to be in the establishment Democratic camp. And why were they in that camp? Because they love corruption, they love war, they love change? No, guys. They were in that camp because mainstream media lied to them. And mainstream media told them, oh, Bernie can't win. Bernie was up by 12 points on election day in 2016. They said, oh, he's radical. And they called you guys radical and said you couldn't win. They call us radical and say we can't win.
But they're actually radical, Cenk. They're actually radical.
Yeah.
Like,
equating,
when the media said about MAGA, hey, this seems bad, the media was correct when they said that. Like, you're drawing an analogy, you're making a comparison, and that comparison is really unfair to the Democratic side, but is totally fair to the right.
Unfair to Bernie.
Like the stuff that Trump did the first time, the stuff he wants to do, he's talking about war with Mexico. The media says, hey, this seems kind of radical and extreme. They're correct saying those things about Trump.
They're wrong. They're lying. So what I need Democrats to understand is stop believing in Morning Joe and The View and all the garbage on TV.
So that's a really good point about the media ecosystem.
Okay, again, you're in front of a MAGA crowd, and you're saying Morning Joe and The View are the problem. I agree, Morning Joe and The View are bad, and we've gone after them 1,000 times. But when you're sitting in front of a MAGA crowd, isn't it more important to say, hey, you guys really need to stop listening to Fox News. You guys really need to stop listening to One America News. You guys really need to stop listening to Newsmax. Hey, did you know Fox News had a $787 million settlement with the voting company, it wasn't Smartmatic, it was the other one, Dominion, I think it was. And internally, the emails came out, and all the hosts knew it was bullshit, all the fake election conspiracies, and Tucker Carlson said he hates Donald Trump with a burning passion, and nothing good came out of the Trump era, and they lied to you repeatedly on air, pretended like they loved Trump when they actually didn't love Trump, and pretended like there was some there with these election fraud conspiracy theories when there weren't. Why are you not, when you're in front of this audience, you need to give them the harsh truths that they don't get.
Come on,
yes, Cenk. This audience, guess what? They hate Democrats. They hate Democrats. You don't need to tell them, oh, aren't Democrats so bad? Just feeding them the catnip they want to hear. In front of this audience, you got to say, hey, you guys got to stop listening to Fox News. They lie. They lie to you relentlessly. They pretend like Trump is good, and here's why Trump is not good. Here's why he's not actually populist. Here's why he's not actually pro-worker and anti-establishment.
You guys are, without a doubt, the most popular, progressive, over-the-top, non-mainstream media sanctioned community. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, 27 million subscribers, 30 billion views. I think it's fair to say.
No, I'm not saying that sarcastically. I don't know of anyone that comes close. However, do you think there's a robust alternative media ecosystem on the left that is comparable to what's built on the right? I can say confidently what we have on the right is pretty impressive. We have from podcasting to videos. We don't rely on cable television. Who here listens to podcasts or social media for all your news? Raise your hand. I mean, every single hand goes up. So do you think the left has some work to do in developing over-the-top media to be able to bypass the main networks?
Well, we don't have big money. We don't have big money. We don't have right-wing think tanks coming in and billionaires coming in and corporations coming in and giving us a shitload of money to spread the same message. And we're not all on the same script that all the right-wingers are on. So we don't have that big money behind us. That's part of the problem. And the other thing is, it is true that we are not taken seriously by the Democrats. Republican politicians are taken seriously by their right-wing online media sphere. Democrats, even the better Democrats, the Bernie Sanders, the AOCs, even they don't really take us seriously. I guess with AOC, that's changing a little bit. She was just on the Majority Report the other day. And with Bernie, we've had some interviews with Bernie, but like they don't use the left-wing media ecosystem, and they don't treat us as serious, and they don't, because they really do more go to mainstream media. Democrats more go to mainstream media. Mainstream media is totally ill-equipped to deal with the behemoth that is right-wing online media, because right-wing online media is all on the same script, and they're relentless. And us here out in the wilderness on the left, we are not all on the same script. We are not relentless, and we don't have the big money, and we don't have the access and the connection to politicians in power, even ones who might ideologically agree with us to one extent or another.
Yeah, so we have TYT as a giant network, but we have a lot of great progressive and populist shows that are not part of TYT that's in the left-wing ecosystem. So
which ones?
I don't think that that's the issue. I don't think that there isn't enough shows. I think that there's a couple other shows. One, on the right, you guys do a great job of coalescing. Okay, so you do a couple of things well. You work together well, and you're more welcoming, if I'm being honest.
We're glad Cenk's here, right, everybody?
And a lot of people on the left know this as well. If you agree with MAGA 5%, the answer you get is welcome, right? Come join us, right? On the left, if you disagree 5%, they go, get out of here, you're a right-winger, you're a fascist, right? But if you push enough people out and you guys welcome enough people in, eventually you win the popular vote. That's what I warned them about, and that's what happened, right?
The reason why liberals and leftists act like that is because we've seen this happen so many times. Dave Rubin pretended to be a lefty. Now he's a Republican sycophant. Russell Brand pretended to be a lefty. Now he's a Republican sycophant. Jimmy Dore pretended to be a lefty. Now he's a Republican sycophant. And people are now saying they're worried about TYT doing the exact same thing because of things they've seen lately. So that's why it's like, hey, you start with one issue and then it's like mission creep and there's a whole bunch of others that happen. This is why people on the left react like they do and why they feel like they do. It's actually totally justified and totally merited to feel like that way and act that way, right? And like, by the way, also, I wouldn't give a fuck if every single one of my peers in online media shit on me 24/7 and disagree with me 24/7. If every single lefty was like, I got this problem with Kyle, I got that problem with Kyle, we don't like Kyle, Kyle's a piece of shit, this or that, that wouldn't matter to me even 1%. Number one, I won't see the shit, right? Because I don't follow this stuff 24/7 and drive myself crazy. But number two, that has no bearing on what my beliefs are, what my ideology is, and the stuff I'm going to talk about, and the stuff I believe in, and the stuff that I push on this show, and the stuff I cover on this show. It doesn't matter if everybody in the left-wing space was a total fucking prick. To me and everybody I knew.
That's the thing about Cenk and Anna. They read online comments.
And so the lefties and liberals have been burned 1,000 times over by people who've gone to the right. And so, yes, they're incredibly protective. And guess what? The harshest critics all along were right every step of the way. They read about Joe Rogan. They were like, oh, look, he's saying some right-wing things, and it looks like he's going down that path. And, hey, this is bad. This is wrong. He's not right about this. He's sort of saying this thing, which is untrue. He's sort of saying this thing, which is kind of crazy. He's taking this bad position, that bad position. And eventually, boom, the mask comes off, and he endorses Donald Trump after giving him one of the most pathetic interviews I've ever seen. So the left is not wrong to act like that, especially in the media space. In terms of voting, yeah, voting's a different story, right? You make your argument, you put out your narrative, you run on things you believe in, and then, you know, my argument is if you do that right and you argue for the right things and you have the right strategy and narrative, then people will come. The liberals will come, the leftists will come, and the independents will come, and you'll end up winning, right? But like, who cares if somebody disagrees with you on the left? The idea that is now going to make me go further and further to the right.
Crazy.
That's just
aren't you principled? Don't you have your own? Yeah.
It's a sign of not actually having real core beliefs and principles, right? That's what that is. So it shouldn't even matter. It shouldn't even matter if people on the left, if you disagree 5% and they yell at you over that 5%, who cares? Who cares? And by the way, if they disagree, you just ignore it and you just keep going talking about the things you want to talk about. Those people will come back. They'll come back. They'll be right there. Hey, I didn't like that take Kyle had the other day, but I like this one a lot, right? Like, anyway, let's keep going.
Look, I propose rules. The 3 rules of the internet. Rule number 1, when we disagree, we fight. There's nothing wrong with that, right? No, rule number 2 is afterwards, we must have a beer together.
How about with Sam Cedar, though? You don't want to have a beer with him, right? Look, who is considered outside of the realm of respectable conversation?
A liar, maybe?
And if the idea is Cedar's a grifter and he's evil and he's outside of the realm of conversation, I don't want to talk to him.
Biggest liar in the world?
Well, then when you say, hey, if we disagree, let's have a beer, if that doesn't apply to Sam Cedar, that's delivering a message, right? So in other words, if you're max left, you're not even worth having the conversation with. But if you're Charlie Kirk or Glenn Beck, it's worth having a conversation. Yeah. That doesn't deliver a good message right there. It's saying the left is illegitimate and outside what should be the Overton window, max left, and the right is inside the tent, and we can have a conversation.
Rule number 3 is, for God's sake, when we agree, let's unite.
But they don't agree. That's the thing that Cenk's not getting. They don't agree. Even if they say they do, they don't agree. They don't agree. They don't agree because Trump massively cut taxes for the rich and corporations, lost 200,000 manufacturing jobs, presided over a loss of nearly 3 million jobs, 2.3 million people lost health insurance under him. He appointed more billionaires and Wall Street CEOs than any president in history. He filled the NLRB with union busters. His labor department stiffed 8 million workers of overtime pay. He increased drone strikes 432%. He bombed Syria twice and bombed Somalia and ripped up the Iran agreement and tried to coup Venezuela. And I'm just listing some of the stuff Trump did here. And all of these people fell in line anyway and supported Trump. Why would you not hold that against them? Why would you not? But they don't realize that's the case. So that's why they supported him, because they think he might be populist. They think he might be anti-establishment. Then your job is to go in there and explain to them the things I just told you and let them know they've been had, that this guy's a fraud, this guy's a con man, and you're doing that. You're not doing that.
We have too much division.
You're not helping.
We almost never unify. I don't mean with the right. I mean internally. The left loves to attack one another. I love you guys on the left. I love you. But every once in a while, when we get a yes, when we agree, can we please unite? And the second thing we need is for the old, I'm being honest, and on average, not everyone, of course, for the older Democratic voters, please turn off your television sets. They're lying to you. They're tricking you. They're trying to get you to vote for corruption. They're trying to get you to vote for policies you don't even want. So if we can do those two things, then we'll be in great shape.
So I'm not sure how you'll feel about this, but there is a consensus, not a consensus, there is a belief with some people like Seth Moulton and others that some of the embrace of what we would call wokeism or whatever was a reason why Democrats had a less than desirable election outcome. Do you subscribe to that belief? How do you interpret that when some people say we need to kind of shed away some of the more new elements of the cultural implications of politics outside of economics, like the Seth Moulton belief that where he says the trans stuff hurt us?
Yeah, so look, guys, on that stuff, I've been having these internally, and I explained today actually on the Young Turks. Look, everybody's positions are in a different part of the left-right spectrum and on different policies. So I can name you policies where you say, well, that's pretty moderate, right? I can name you policies that you're not sure is left or right-wing, but that is definitely populist, right? But some of my policies might be called extreme left in America. So for example, I'm massively in favor of gun control. You told them not to boo, but I knew they'd boo on that one.
They paused to their respect. You were asking for it, Cenk.
Yeah, I did ask for it. So my point to my left-wing allies is, am I going to emphasize and insist and demand on my gun control policies when we're in the middle of a national election? No, because I know those are not winning issues. More work to do to convince the American people before we get there. So if on trans issues or any other, or crime issues, etc., if you really believe in the most far positions, as I do on gun control, for example, that's okay. But you've got to know what to emphasize and what not to emphasize. And so if you say, no, I'm going to die on every extreme hill, well, you will. Electorally, politically, you will die on that hill. And then you lose on all of your issues, because it's sometimes a binary game, certainly elections.
That's not okay, but again, my reaction to the election was the exact opposite. But that's not true, Cenk, because Trump can go around talking about jailing his political opponents, deploying the U.S. military against his political opponents and locking them up. He can run promising vengeance and revenge and retribution. He can run talking about Arnold Palmer's cock and saying immigrants are eating cats and dogs. He can take whatever position he wants on whatever wacky issue, and it wasn't a liability to him.
Yeah.
So why do you now assume that any Democrat who might take a position which is a minority polled position, why is that the death knell for a Democrat, but it wasn't the death knell for Trump? And again, my reaction to that is, as long as you have your main narrative, you can get away with almost fucking anything. Their main narrative is, your life sucks. I understand that, and I'm going to try. But that's a lie. It's not true, but that's the right-wing narrative. That's what they got people to believe, and people voted for them. You have to respond to that by saying immigrants are not the problem, trans people are not the problem. They have nothing to do with it. The reason your life sucks is billionaires and corporations and robber barons and the donor class and rigging the political system for them and against you. That's why you didn't get a raise. That's why your healthcare sucks and we don't have universal health insurance, et cetera, et cetera. This is how you answer it. And if you do that, you gain political capital where you can even take positions in other areas which might not be as popular. If Trump can get away with talking about Arnold Palmer's dick, why are you so afraid of Democrats saying, hey, trans people are equal and they deserve equal rights and they're just like anybody else in this country and we're going to defend our trans allies, right? Like it. And the other thing is, to Charlie Kirk's point, everybody keeps pretending like wokeness tanked this race.
Yeah, exactly.
Hold on one second. In 2020, Joe Biden won the election. That was peak Democratic wokeness, and the Democrats won. The DNC in 2020 was woke to the extreme. Black Lives Matter shit behind them as they were talking. It was in the midst of like the George Floyd protests and riots. Democrats were max woke and won. It's clearly not the trend and the impediment that people think it is, especially since this time around, Kamala didn't mention race, didn't mention gender, didn't mention trans people, didn't mention pronouns or Latinx or cancel culture or political correctness. She stressed that she represent all Americans. She ran to the right on the issue of the border. She talked about owning a gun. Exactly. She ran on freedom and patriotism.
Like, what are you talking about, James?
She wasn't woke. She wasn't woke.
I was happy that
and there's this weird thing where it's like, blame wokeness, Hillary, but again, that is an attempt from the Democratic establishment to deflect from them having to get more populist and more anti-establishment and more anti-corruption. That's why you see it is the Seth Moultons of the world who blaming trans people. That's why they're doing, because he's not going to stop taking the big donor money. right? So that it's literally an establishment Democrat obfuscation and diversion. Say blame wokeness. That's their way of saying don't blame us for being neoliberals and for not endorsing Bernie Sanders mold. So, all right.
So you got to know what to convince the American people of and what to hold your ground on. And the number one thing to hold your ground on is constitutional rights. So I'm going to do some...
Like the Second Amendment.
And that's what the right is going to take out from this interview. Number one, Cenk was shitting on Democrats. That's cool. We like it when people shit on Democrats. They don't care about the details. They don't care about the specifics. Hey, here's even this lefty shitting on Democrats. That's what they're going to take to feed their narrative. They're going to take that and this one clip where Charlie Kirk owns Cenk. Oh, I'm massively in favor of gun control, but you have to know what issues to put front and center and what issues not to put front and center. But the one thing you never compromise on is constitutional rights. And he goes, obviously a rebuttal to that, namely the Second Amendment is talking about a well-regulated militia. It's not about the individual right of every single person to own a gun, right? And it's also certainly you can't have a fucking Gatling gun or a tank or whatever. Like everybody believes in regulation in one extent or another. The question is, where's the line? And also the text of the Second Amendment literally says regulated and it says militia, right? There is a response to that, but I mean, going into these places and sort of looking for areas of agreement, he set himself up to just get like dunked on there. And he did. He got dunked on. That was a rebuttal from Charlie Kirk, which fucking landed, made the crowd laugh, and people, right-wingers were sharing it on Twitter, laughing about how much Charlie Kirk owned Cenk there. So that's the takeaway from it.
Good job, Cenk.
That's the takeaway. MAGA is going to go, look, even Cenk hates Democrats. So Democrats suck. And, oh, look, Charlie Kirk owned him on guns. Is it really worth it to go into this place for that result?
So guys, look at that. Look at that. We totally disagree on that issue, but we just...
You were asking for that.
No problem. No, but look, but that was an important moment because we totally disagree on that issue, but we just shook hands anyway. And you know what we'll do afterwards? We'll have a beer.
Yeah,
that's the other thing is this whole, like, let's have a beer with them. It's like, can you have a beer with people you disagree with who are regular people? Sure. That's totally fine, and everybody does it. It's not special. Everybody's got members of their family who disagree with them massively politically, and you still go to the holiday events, et cetera, of course. But, like, am I going to have a beer with the Republican elites who are part of MAGA and part of that establishment? And right now, what are they in the midst of doing? By the way, Trump at this event, he gave a speech, and the speech was about mass deportation, shitting on trans people relentlessly, and going to war with Mexico. No, I'm not going to have a beer with the people who are representing that ideology and that philosophy, and they're driving that ship forward. I'm not going to have a beer with those people. What am I supposed to do? I supposed to find the middle ground on war with Mexico? The Trump team is internally debating how far do we go? Do we just do special forces? Do we do drone strikes? Do we do traditional airstrikes? Do we do boots on the ground? That's the conversation they're having is how much should we invade Mexico and do war with Mexico? There is no... You can just disagree. You can have political enemies. You can actually represent an opposite philosophy and say, these things matter, and fuck those people. They're fucking wrong, and I'm not going to give an inch to them on it. That's what Trump does. Trump says, I don't agree with you. Fuck off. I'm going to cut your head off now because you disagree with me, and I'm going to keep bulldozing forward and get my way. And the Democrats go, oh, well, maybe I'll bend the knee a little bit. Maybe I'll find this agreement. There's nothing to agree with. There is nothing to agree with right now. Nothing. Everything they're repping is stupid and dumb and bad and wrong, and it's on us in left-wing media to point that out.
Yes.
You know what it is when you disagree on something and then you fight about it and then you have a beer afterwards? That's called America.
Why are we pretending like there's no such thing as an area of principled disagreement where there is no middle ground? There's a genocide going on in Gaza. Trump has been going around saying, we got to go further. The problem with Joe Biden is he held Israel back too much. That's the problem. We got to let Israel finish the job. We got to deport pro-Palestine protesters. We got to allow Israel to annex the entire West Bank. Pro-Holocaust, pro-genocide, pro-concentration camps, pro-killing little kids and sniping them in the head as Israel has been doing. They can take that position, and I'm supposed to say, yeah, I disagree, but there are some things that are such core disagreements that you shouldn't have a fucking beer. Duh. Why is this like a controversial thing?
So let me see if I can get agreement. And this, I don't know which way this is going to go. Okay. So when we talk about trans issues in terms of sports, I know we have massive disagreements. Okay. And on one of those issues, professional sports, I agree with you guys. On high school sports, I don't. We'll go get into a bloody battle on that. Okay. But I want to ask you guys something. Do you believe that trans Americans should have the same constitutional rights as all Americans to employment, healthcare, and housing? Constitutional rights.
Do you want me to translate? Well, there is no constitutional right to housing.
Okay, so I hear you. What I got out of that, guys.
I'm just trying to be the interpreter.
Yeah. No, there was a lot of applause and there was some consternation, right? I'll take it. It's a start.
At this exact same event, listen to this.
Does this so-called gender-affirming butchery actually produce health outcomes?
Never. There is no thing as a healthy transition. No matter what drugs or what surgeries you get, it only makes you into a disfigured man or woman. These are distressed boys and girls who deserve better than this.
Same event. Cenk, they don't agree. Right now, you have Republican states. Some Republican states are cracking down on all gender-affirming care for minors. Forget the surgery. There is no bottom surgery done for kids. Very, very rarely there's top surgery. But for some kids, they get either the hormone treatment or puberty blockers. Republican states are saying, ban that. We're done with that. There's some Republican states that are saying, ban all trans health care, even for adults. They don't agree with you. Even on that bare minimum, oh, hey, constitutional rights for trans people. The consternation is people being honest and being like, I don't really agree with that. That's why Charlie Kirk's reaction wasn't, I agree with constitutional rights for trans people. His reaction was, there is no constitutional right to housing. Right? So they don't agree. You're giving them way too much credit in assuming they don't actually like really hate trans people and think they don't exist, right? Or think they shouldn't exist, right?
On,
no, they actually think trans people shouldn't exist. There's a spectrum on the right. Some are more reasonable than others, but the default perspective for a lot of these people, don't take my word for it. Look at the Michael Knowles of the world. Look at the Matt Walshes of the world. Look at the things they say. Look at the legislation being passed. They actually don't think anybody should be trans. They don't think trans is a thing. They think it's front.
They just don't like trans.
So in the gay people, that's a phase. It's stupid. It's immoral. It's a sin. Nobody should be that, etc. They didn't think gay people really existed. They don't think trans people should exist.
Exactly.
They don't think they should exist. Another thing at the exact same event. Panel discussion at the exact same event, and this was the reaction.
We can even disagree about what's constitutional, Second Amendment, housing, etc. But just let's treat everyone as Americans. And I say that to the right, and I say it to the left.
For sure. So we're going to go a little overtime because I know the boss here. And there's two things. I want to ask about free speech, and then I want to try to say, can we get one or two action items that this community can get behind in this new Congress and this presidency that are populist that maybe we can push for and advocate for? And I want to try to maybe see if we could brainstorm that together. Number one, the first on free speech. Do you think that the left, and you are an exception, is ready to embrace a robust, spirited culture of freedom of speech where disagreement is welcome, where you're able to have these kind of dialogues and forums? And I think it's a tragedy, it seems to me, that more the right is willing to do it. Prove me wrong if that really is the case.
Yeah, I'm trying to remind the left of who we are, because the left is supposed to be for freedom of speech.
I'm going to unalive myself. You're in front of an audience at a MAGA event. Charlie Kirk teased you up for, man, the left is really anti-free speech and the right is really pro-free speech. And your reaction is not to list off the areas where Trump is anti-free speech?
Trump has sued people.
Trump threatened to de-license news outlets that criticize him.
Pro-free speech.
Trump wants to punish flag burning with a year in jail, which is literally directly against the First Amendment as ruled by the Supreme Court of the United States, where even conservative justices said it's a right to burn the flag. It's political speech. Trump sued CNN for $475 million for calling election denialism the big lie. Trump wanted to invoke the Insurrection Act to deploy U.S. troops against George Floyd protesters. He called to terminate all rules, regulations, and articles in the Constitution. He didn't pardon Snowden or Assange or Daniel Hale. He arrested and charged 6 journalists with felony rioting. He gag ordered the EPA for telling the truth on climate change. He says he wants to deport pro-Palestine protesters. He supports opening up the libel laws. Mm-hmm. He sued Bill Maher for $5 million over a joke.
Yep.
He's the most anti-free speech, anti-First Amendment president we've ever had. Ever. And your reaction is not to lay out, hey man, Trump is not pro-free speech. We're not going to play that here. If you guys are pro-free speech, all of you should be shitting on Trump and explaining exactly why he's wrong and why he's so authoritarian. And you should be standing up to Trump and fighting Trump every step of the way with all of his anti-free speech actions that he's done. He's done them in the past. He's going to do them again in the future. Bring up some of these. Hey, do you guys oppose when Trump said this? When Trump did this? He didn't. He's like, oh, I'm trying to get the left to believe in free speech again. I do. We do. We do believe in free speech. We do. Way more than these charlatans and con men and frauds ever will. I can't believe you let them get away with that. Holy shit.
The left needs freedom. If you're gay or you're trans or you're Muslim or you're someone that was otherized at some point in your life, you need freedom more than anyone else does. You need equality more than anyone else does. You need justice more than anyone else does. So if you want those things, you've got to reciprocate. So you've got to not, I want.
They don't reciprocate. They're not for free speech. They're just pretending. Oh my God.
You guys to not assume that we hate you, or that we're evil, or that we're bad. But if we're going to do that, the left wing has to do the same. They have to assume that you're not evil, that you don't hate them, and you're not. Time to time, we'll get back into the battles and we'll kill each other. But overall, if we can begin to not hate each other, and so when we disagree, let's try two more real quick here. When we disagree, can we agree to not hate each other? All right, excellent.
It depends on the issue. Cenk, I shouldn't hate the guy who tried to overturn the last election, did the fake elector slate. It was an attempted coup, an insurrection, and I'm not supposed to hate him? Like,
and when we have these fights, to Charlie's point, can we, for the first time in my lifetime, begin to actually listen to one another?
Oh my God.
And Charlie, I'll give you credit on this, because one turning points, if you will, in how I started to view the right wing is when you came on the Young Turks at the RNC, and we started talking about banning private equity from buying residential real estate. So
which I totally agree with. The Young and BlackRock.
So we've got a populist plank on tyt.com that's one of the 6 pillars, right? And all my life I go on Republican shows, I go on right-wing shows. When I say something against the bankers, they're like, no, the bankers are great, the bankers are great. Oh, I was so frustrated. And now all of a sudden, we got the right-wing populists saying, let's ban the bankers from buying our homes so they don't drive up the prices. Yes. The left, take yes for an answer.
There is a 0% chance Trump does that. Zero. Why are we pretending otherwise? And then when he doesn't do that, none of these people are going to attack him. None of them are going to attack him. None.
Trump is right.
And by the way, right now, as we speak, they are in the midst of trying to destroy the entire regulatory state. Elon Musk is trying to literally eliminate the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and the National Labor Relations Board. He says he thinks they're unconstitutional. They're trying to let big business do anything and everything they want. They rolled back over 110 environmental laws the last time. A MAGA judge just overturned overtime pay for 8 million Americans. 8 million were going to get it because of a Biden rule. Then a MAGA judge threw it out. Trump didn't say anything in disagreement with it. Elon Musk didn't say anything in disagreement with it. Charlie Kirk didn't say anything in disagreement with it. And everybody in that audience, nobody said a goddamn word in disagreement with it. None of them. So why are we pretending? Trump's he's not even going to come close to doing this. If anything, he's going to do the opposite.
What I said online on X was, at least what we got out of this election is, we're no longer in an establishment prison. Now we're in the populist woods, right?
No, we are in an establishment prison. We're in an establishment prison, and you guys are all pretending like it's populist woods. It's an establishment prison that is using trickery and deceit and lies to pretend like it's a populist woods.
So much better for everyone, huh?
And Cenk should know this. He should know this. And he should be the one leading the charge explaining how Trump's not a populist. He's not anti-establishment. There's a 0% chance he will be. We have his record from the last time. We know what he says he wants to do this time. But instead, we're here holding hands, singing Kumbaya and snuggling up to MAGA and pretending like literally anything positive will come out of this.
If you say, yeah, but we're going to fight in the populist woods, yes. But at least we're all human out here. We defeated the corporate robots. And
no, Trump is a corporate robot.
Exactly.
You did not defeat the corporate robots. The corporate robots are still in control.
we've got more fights with the corporate robots to come. But out here in the woods, when I see you guys, I don't hate you anymore, right? I see my fellow Americans. And so in these populist woods, we'll sometimes have skirmishes, sometimes we'll have battles. But the main thing I'm trying to drive with the 6 points of the populist plank, higher wages for Americans, time off for mom.
Are you kidding me?
I just explained to you how a MAGA judge threw out overtime pay increase for 8 million Americans. And there nobody, no Republican politician, no MAGA supporter, no media right-winger said, whoa, this is evil, this is horrible, this is wrong. Why isn't Trump going out there fighting to say that judge made the wrong decision? We want overtime pay. They're not going to do it, Cenk. They don't actually believe these things.
After they have a baby, anti-corruption,
totally
anti-war. The reason...
Anti-corruption and anti-war.
Seriously?
Cenk knows Trump is not anti-war. He knows this. He knows this. He knows this.
The Pentagon?
Oh, yes. So the reason I pick those is not because they're the most left-wing positions, because those are the positions we all agree on.
Charlie Kirk just said, cut the Pentagon. Remember, Cenk was on Twitter talking to Elon Musk and Don Jr. saying, hey, let's cut the Pentagon. And they were like, yeah, hooray, let's do that. A Republican in Congress just proposed a bill called the Doge Act. In that bill, they cut, I forget the exact number, $300 and some odd billion, or $100 and some odd billion from the social safety net. You know how many cuts there are to the Pentagon? Zero.
I was going to do that too.
Zero. Now, did Elon Musk or Donald Trump Jr. or Charlie Kirk or Cenk or anybody come out here and say, they said they were going to cut the Pentagon, they didn't, they're fucking lying, they're frauds. None of them did that. None of them did that. None of them did that.
They don't actually care.
And so why are we doing this weird kabuki theater? It's like, maybe they'll do this thing that they already didn't do and have no plans on doing. Like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? We need all hands on deck to call out the fraud that is this administration, that is this government. We need all hands on deck for that.
And God help the establishment if we actually work together to do those things. And finally, to the heart of your question, Charlie, I proposed on X, cut the Pentagon, make sure the generals cannot work for the military-industrial complex afterwards, and free Edward Snowden.
I agree.
So it's beautiful that we have populist agreement on the right and the left on those issues.
Why did Trump increase the Pentagon every single year he was in there? And why did MAGA not say anything in reaction, disagreeing with him and calling him out for it? Cenk, why? If this is priority that they're...
I'm asking you guys, let's make those a reality. Because right now, a lot of my friends on the left don't believe you. They...
To say the least, fella. It's beyond that. I know they're not going to do it. I fucking know they're not going to do it.
No, they can't possibly be telling the truth, right? No way they're going to cut the Pentagon. No way they're going to have a conflict of interest rule for the generals. No way they're going to do any of this, right? Prove them wrong. Prove them that you are actual populists, that you do mean it, and that we can work together to get those things done.
I mean, what is there to say?
Just whatever Trump,
right?
That's.
I mean, you're going to talk about cutting the Pentagon and these people being anti-war, and Trump increased drone strikes by over 400%. He kept us in Iraq. He kept us in Afghanistan. There was a 330% increase in civilian deaths in Afghanistan while he oversaw the war. He bombed Syria twice. He bombed Somalia. He occupied a third of Syria. In his words, to quote, take the oil. Increased the Pentagon budget every year. Let Israel illegally annex the Golan Heights. Assassinated a top Iranian commander, General Soleimani, who was fighting ISIS. Dropped the Moab on Afghanistan. Said he wants war with Mexico in his second term. Vetoed a bill to stop our support of the Saudi genocide in Yemen, ripped up the Iran agreement, picked neocons like John Bolton and Mike Pompeo and Gina Haspel to run his foreign policy, warmongers. Did his first military raid as president, killed a young American girl. He pardoned Blackwater war criminals. He signed pro-torture executive orders. I mean, he is Dick Cheney. He is George W. Bush. He is a neocon warmonger.
Yes.
And we need to be super clear about what the stakes are and what MAGA is about and what they want to do and what they're going to do. And we should not be providing them with this left flank cover as if maybe they'll be populist, maybe they'll be anti-establishment, maybe they'll be anti-war, when we already know that it's not the case.
Yeah.
Look, it would be a different story if Cenk was doing this in 2016. Hey, maybe Trump said some anti-outsourcing stuff on the campaign trail. He said some anti-corruption stuff on the campaign trail. There's a possibility he's a wild card. He's never held political office. Maybe. Maybe.
But we already
Maybe.
had one.
Let's find some things. Sure. Why not? He's already been president for 4 years.
Yep.
His record is already abysmal.
Yep.
Where do you know what he said this time when he ran? Like,
Exactly. Wake up, Cenk.
This is
wakey.
Not good, folks. Not good. It's a real shame. Because again, the thing that they took out of this is everything negative he said about Democrats. That's their clips, right? That's their clips. Everything negative about Democrats. See, this is the Democrats. Horrible, bad, evil, wrong, even lefty, even Democrat Cenk Uygur. This is how they're going to think of it. Says this, right? It's that, and it's the Charlie Kirk owning Cenk on guns. That's going to be the takeaway. That's going to be the takeaway. Whatever nuance he thinks he's making, whatever alliance between populist right and populist left, it ain't there. And it's not happening. And it's never going to happen. The real alliance is going to be with liberals and leftists and independents. That's going to be the real alliance. And it's going to be providing a counter narrative to MAGA and explaining why they're wrong and why we're right and why they're actually completely and utterly full of shit. And we need to call that out every single step of the way and have real answers for their fake answers. So one more thing here on Cenk's visit to MAGA land. Glenn Beck spoke right after TYT. And here's what he said. Ready?
So we have to look for the light that is between us. We have to know who the good guys are, who the bad guys are, who's actually on the team. And now that we have all of this popularity, suddenly Donald Trump is cool with everyone. We have to make sure those who wear masks are not coming in and claiming to be part of this team, and they have no intention of being on the team.
That's what Glenn Beck said about right after TYT spoke, right after Cenk spoke. Let's see what the comments say. Thing is serious when you're actually going to Republican rallies after calling the other side racist for years. Let's not forget this guy called for unvaccinated people to not be allowed to get health care. This guy is fake. Hard to trust is seeing go down in the past. Be careful, Cenk. How he treated Dave Rubin on Piers Morgan was just atrocious. Cenk, I strongly believe in gun control. Later, Cenk, we should fight for constitutional rights. Charlie, yeah, like the Second Amendment. He wasn't saying any of this 6 weeks ago. Don't fall for it. Not only did Cenk say vote for Harris, but he said vote for Hillary and Biden. When push came to shove, Cenk was okay with the establishment. Cenk believed this time the establishment is okay because Orange Man bad. So, by the way, notice this guy's takeaway too. This guy's takeaway is Trump is anti-establishment and Hillary, Kamala, and are pro-establishment. Even though Biden's economic policies were way more anti-establishment than anything Donald Trump ever did, ever. He still believes all the Democrats pro-establishment, Trump anti-establishment. These are the kinds of people that he's trying to appeal to.
Good job, Cenk.
Bruh, ain't no way y'all buying this grift. Blah, blah, blah. He is a snake. He is not there in good faith. I don't buy his lies. He pushed all these establishment lies for years. Not wasting my time. Cenk is the king of grifting. Blah, blah. Like, this goes on. This guy suffers from TDS. So how's it going? How's it going? So think about it. You're probably most of the people on the right and in MAGA are not buying what Cenk is selling. Most of them. The liberals are obviously pissed off because they don't even think Cenk gave a fair shake to like Kamala Harris, right? They think he was too hard on Kamala Harris. And the lefties are pissed because now he goes around calling them, max left all the time. And refuses to talk to Sam Cedar, called Sam Cedar a grifter. Really, they really focus on and talk about the disagreement on trans issues and crime a lot, right? They got a lot of criticism for covering that story of a gang taking over a Venezuelan apartment complex or whatever. There's a big debunking of that from that Jose channel. So the max left is pissed. The liberals are pissed. And most of the people in MAGA you're trying to reach out to are basically saying, I don't buy it. Fuck off.
So lose.
Is it worth it? Is it worth
Cenk.
it? I think the answer is pretty apparent. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop.
I agree.
And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.
What Kyle said. So I'm going to watch another one in a different live stream because I need to see David Pakman talk to Cenk. That one's going to be shorter, like 25 minutes or something. So see you there if you want to join. All right. Bye.